Get good at Airsoft CQB. The letters CQB stand for Close Quarters Battle, but most of you probably already know that. Now, there are books full of tips and experiences on how to get it right. However, there is a difference between real combat, which these books are aimed at helping with, and Airsoft. Today, we are going to combine the real steel experience with some Airsoft-specific tips to give you all the information you need so you can finally beat the local Speedsoft team. Compared to Airsoft, real CQB is extremely risky. Yes, you have to move quickly and surprise the enemy. Principles very useful in Airsoft, but the way you do that differs. That's where parts of the military books become useless for us Airsofters. But what remains useful and works in all cases is practice. With Airsoft, it is often overlooked, even though it's cheap, fun and useful. The great thing is that you can start working in your living room. And what should you focus on? In short, focus on all situations that happen in CQB. That includes quick target acquisition, reloading, drawing your pistol, peeking, and, if possible, movement. Of course, having a garden for this helps a lot, but you can settle for a room. Let me show you one of the drills you may work on.
In my opinion, the most important one, having your gun up. Don't do it like this, don't just walk around with the rifle pointing down. Always have your gun lower, walk a little bit, and if somebody shows up, just realign and shoot.
Now, it has to be said that simply training with replicas will only get you that far. Airsoft does get physical, so preferably you want to work on that as well. Focus mostly on cardio and, if possible, add in a little bit of strength training. I know it hurts, but trust me, it helps. Moving on, let's talk about sidearms, or pistols, if you will. First, let's establish some main points. In CQB, pistols are more efficient than rifles. Why? Well, the benefits of a rifle pale when engagements happen within 15 meters or so, or the length of one American school bus for reference. You don't need the extra muzzle energy from a rifle and a generally better accuracy at longer ranges. But you still have to maneuver the thing in tight corners. That slows down your reaction time and makes it more difficult to peek and move around the CQB area. Compare crawling through a small hole in the wall with an SSP-5 versus the SSR-63. Speaking of the SSP-5, it is about the best thing for CQB you can get. I played with it both in CQB and woodland fields, outplaying regular AGs. But given the small size of it, you get all the advantages, assuming you don't need to spray and pray wherever you play. So definitely go check that out. Especially interesting is the red dot placement on the pistol. Anyways, the second thing is to train with the same stuff you play with. This should be clear, but you'd be surprised. If you can reload, shoot, holster and use an SSP-18 with your eyes closed, it does not mean you can do the same for a different platform, the SSX-23 for example. Always get in the same gear you will be using and try to get the conditions reasonably similar to the actual game. Also, on a side note, if you go through a lot of CQB in Airsoft, consider if you even need a combination of a long rifle plus a small pistol. I know it's cool to have the tactical looking loadout, but hear me out. For CQB, rifles are generally less efficient. Their length makes them impractical. That's why when you look at the airsofters in Hong Kong, for example, they often simply run a high kappa as opposed to a rifle. Talking about guns, ideally, you want to always keep your replica pointed towards the enemy, especially in CQB. This speeds up your reaction, but be aware not to walk around looking through your sight. This way, you enter a tunnel vision, making it harder for you to spot and react to enemies hiding somewhere in a corner. An example would be if I point my pistol and I have it in front of my eyes, I just cannot see down there where my hands are. And maybe that's where the enemy is hiding. A worthy tip here: if you shoot with an airsoft pistol, don't keep your hands too far away from your face. There is no real recoil to counter, meaning you can have the pistol closer to you, allowing you to better aim, move around corners and peek. Speaking of peeking, there are a few more things to keep in mind if you want to be efficient in CQB. What we often see is players taking cover right behind the obstacle, often even touching it. That is not ideal for two reasons. When you want to keep moving forward, your rifle is likely chucked up somewhere down, though it shouldn't be as mentioned earlier. Regardless, this slows you down, as you first need to take your gun up to start moving. It is also an issue in case someone rushes you, as he will be 100% faster than you. Second, when you start clearing the room or space behind the obstacle, you will find yourself exposing the barrel first, making you vulnerable to hits from the side. This is especially problematic if you are hiding behind a wall with an enemy right behind it. Simply said, you should always be able to stand behind the cover with your gun up. This way, you can peek easily, change positions, and better react to the situation. On top of that, make sure you never peek on the same spot twice in a row. If you peeked while standing, crouch for the next peek. If you peeked from the right side of your cover, move to the left. Moreover, one less frequent thing seen on the field is peeking over an obstacle you are crouching behind. Imagine a row of tires the height of your waistline. A fairly surprising way to peek is over the top. When doing it, make sure the first thing the enemy may see is not the top of your head. If you peek straight up, the top of the head will show enemy that you are peeking just a tiny bit before you can actually see and engage. For that reason, tilt yourself a bit to the side. This way, it's your eyes and your replica peeking out first, giving you the slight edge. Last but not least, when switching sides of the cover, don't forget to also switch shoulders. If you need to show your entire body before you get your replica out of the cover, you cannot use the full potential of CQB tactics. Moving on, movement is a big part of CQB. Essentially, you want to be a bit of a ninja. Move fast and simple. Yes, we know it's easier said than done, but the basics are simple. In short, try not to step on loud stuff like glass or metal. Grass and concrete are great for that, and it doesn't really matter that much in which way you make your step. However, all this has to happen quickly. Notice how many speed softers run when playing in CQB. The reason is that the faster you go, the less time you give your enemy to react. So don't fear to switch positions by running. Most of the time, running does not get punished. On top of that, when moving into a room, you can try the so-called slicing the pie technique. In short, it means that you gradually peek over the corner in a room. This way, you don't expose yourself any more than needed. Definitely give it a shot. And this brings us to the last point, your own mind. Yes, that's also something that can help you improve. This one can be best trained with practice, but you can also help it by throwing yourself in situations as intense as possible. Get used to getting hit. You will see for yourself that when the fear of getting hit eventually just goes away, you will find yourself able to push and actually win a game. If this fear bothers you, try to find a CQB field that has a fairly low limits and just repeat. One could argue that most of the pain actually comes from the scare. And that wraps it up. If you feel like we missed out on something, feel free to hit the comment section. What else would you recommend your friends to do? How do you run your CQB setup? Let us know and see you in the next one.